When we enter menopause, our ovaries are not going to be producing these hormones anymore. It's going to be primarily our adrenals. Now, our adrenals are also the ones producing our adrenaline, our cortisol. And if we keep pushing through, we keep eating our kids' leftovers and not prioritizing nutrition. We keep trying to lose those, pounds that can't seem to go. So we keep doing the HIIT. We keep getting up at 5 a.m. to try and do XYZ and keep pushing through starvation after starvation. And then we go, 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 go. And then we go, hey, adrenals, would you like to make some more progesterone for me? Do you think that would be great so I could sleep better and have a better mood? And your adrenals are just like, screw you. You have been doing nothing but hating on me, pushing through, not prioritizing our health. And your body keeps giving until it's dry. And then we ask it to give again and we get mad because we're like, can't believe I have all these symptoms. My body sucks. This is horrible, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, you haven't actually really been taking care of it that well. And then we ask more of it and we get mad when it's not there.
Have you ever felt less than? Like you can't keep up with the demands of the day? Are your periods so painful you vomit or you can't even get out of bed? And now you have given up on caring about your period health because you're not trying to have a baby. Then this is your episode. Join me as we discuss turning your crappy period, fertility, menopausal, or perimenopausal journey into your superpower. Before we dive in, I sincerely want to thank you for having the bravery to face your shit and heal yourself by listening to this show. Thank you also for liking this video, sharing it, and subscribing to my YouTube channel or on Spotify or Apple to help this information reach the people who need to hear it most. Facing your shit and healing yourself is a movement. It's more than a podcast. You can support this movement with a donation or become a member for as low as $5 a month and receive exclusive art, be featured on the show, submit questions for guests, and more. So who am I and why did I decide to create this show? Well, after unraveling all of the medical and pharmaceutical lies I had been told about my endometriosis, I educated myself and I was able to heal myself after 17 years of debilitating pain. My experience inspired me to actually live my art. So I created an ongoing art series about it called Every Phase. And this is where I create artwork that illustrates how I healed myself as I live by the phases of the female hormonal cycle. You can look for the Every Phase vlog episodes on the podcast as I recreate select pieces of the series in an animated mini-series. The artwork shows what's happening in the brain and the body during each phase and reveals how to biohack and leverage this energy in your life. I am actually living the art, so it's about more than just healing. The writing and the art discuss truth, freedom, our current healthcare and financial system, slavery, and the way out of it. You can learn more by subscribing on my Substack. So all of that to say, even though I was lied to for years by doctors promoting Big Pharma, I was able to find experts who helped me achieve what I thought was impossible. This show introduces those people and practices to you. Today we are chatting with functional diagnostic nutritional practitioner Leah Brueggemann. Leah's health journey started about 5 years ago when she discovered lumps in one of her breasts. Fortunately, after getting an exam, she was informed she had benign breast tumors. She chose not to have them surgically removed because they reportedly return 90% of the time. After this diagnosis, she began to research, speaking to many doctors, naturopathic doctors, and learned her irregular cycles were connected to these tumors. Her periods were so painful, they would make her vomit. They were actually present. And she also found out she had ovarian cysts. The research into her situation showed that her symptoms were a result of her being extremely estrogen dominant. And at this point, now she knew the problem and she just needed to figure out how to solve it. By nourishing her body with loving foods, she was eventually able to heal herself and tumors started to shrink, ovarian cysts disappeared, her cycles normalized, and she actually had pain-free periods. She soon realized that this situation is not unique to her, and there are so many women that are having hormonal issues of some sort or another. She made this her mission. She became a functional diagnostic nutritional practitioner and empowers women by showing them how to support their bodies through proper nutrition to effectively balance their hormones.
I interviewed Dr. Kelly Ruth, who is like a naturopathic doctor, and she got on and she did the same thing. She's like, I gotta reapply my chapstick. And I'm like, why? And she goes, because you know that when you get nervous, your lips get chapped. And I was like, what? Like such a weird
Really?
concept. I didn't know that, but yeah.
I can actually see that, at least for myself, because but I feel like I drink more a little bit when I get nervous. It's like I drink that
It's like
water.
something to do. You're like, let me just keep
Yeah.
sipping over here. Yeah. I do find that on my podcast days, I like down all my water, but I'm also talking a lot. So I'm like breathing in like the dry air from the basement.
Yeah. I gotta say, I freaking love your podcast.
I'm so
I
glad.
get your yes, it is so valuable. And anyone out there listening, just go listen. Balancing Hormones Naturally. It's just so to the point and it's so striking. And yeah, you just cover so much great information. I literally get your emails and I just put them on my like listen later playlist because I need to catch up. There's so many great topics that are just so relatable. Like just quick ways to balance hormones, the answer, birth control is the answer to regular periods. We're totally going to chat about that. But yeah,
Mhm.
I just freaking love it. I had to shout you out because it's incredible the work you're doing with your
Thank
podcast.
you. Well, let me know. I have to record today. So give me ideas what you want to hear. Sometimes I'm like, so you like, what do you want me to record this week? They're like, oh, whatever you want. I'm like, that wasn't helpful. I'm like, I don't know what I want to record right now. I typically go whatever has been like the trying like topic for all my clients that's been coming up. That's why if you notice, like all my episodes seem to batch a topic. It's because I'm like, this is what everybody's going through this month. And then the next month, I'm like, this is what everybody's going through. So it's a new topic.
You can tell. And I think that's part of why it's relatable because it's what people are actually wondering. Okay, what is like the day? It's very much like a day to day. This is how you live in this world with surrounded by toxins, surrounded by poison, surrounded by bullshit,
Hmm.
and how you remain balanced. And especially when everything's geared towards men, all the fad diets, like all the stats and stuff you hear out there, all the research, like most of it, that's done on men and postmenopausal women are not
Yeah.
even including the infradian rhythm, the cyclical nature of women in their menstruating years.
Hmm.
Like, that's why I find it so refreshing, just because
Yeah.
you're addressing that and it's very real. And it's like these simple things that are really big that cause people years of struggle and
Mhm.
pain.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the podcast is really generated towards like me, like back when I was younger. And because I joke about these topics, but I grew up with six brothers and one sister, and she was 7 years older than me. So I remember that the magic phrase to get out of anything was like, I have period cramps because nobody,
Yeah.
all the guys in the house were like, oh my gosh, don't talk to Leah. She has the plague. And I did have really bad period cramps though, like, I would be throwing up, it would be and I just thought, whatever, like, this is normal, but I never wanted to talk about it, like, I would just say I was sick at school and have my mom come pick me up. It would not be like, "Oh, I'm on my period and I have really bad cramps." It was like, "Oh, I have the flu," or "I'm nauseous," or whatever, I was just sick, which I was throwing up, so I feel like it was somewhat validly easy to believe. But it was just taboo, and I didn't have any information out there. I just thought it was normal, and nobody talked about it. None of my friends were, like, talking about periods or we're in high school, so I guess it's not, like, super, I guess, easy to say, but same thing in college. I would be sick on my period, and it would just my cycles were really irregular and knew nothing about, like, women's cycles and how to support them. So I didn't know that you would hold on and retain more water in that luteal phase. And you'd wonder why, oh, why do I feel like so good about myself? And then 2 weeks later, you're just like, oh my gosh, I need to go on a diet. What's wrong with me? And I would be the person on Pinterest going like, what are like 30 days to flat abs? Or what's the one drink that's going to solve all my issues with digestion? What's the one thing that's going to make sure I'm not constipated? That was me on like Dr. Google forever because I didn't think that there was anything else out there. I wasn't taught it. I wasn't taught that in school. Like in anatomy, I learned about bones and muscles, like not learning
Yeah.
about important things.
Yeah. And it's the most important. And I think the reason people don't talk about it, they don't know. They're not educated. There's no
Yeah.
education surrounding this is like our whole life, right? It's not people think, you know, I bleed once a month and that's my cycle. But like we
Mhm.
just know it's follicular, it's ovulatory, it's luteal, it's menstrual. That's your cycle and it
Yeah.
repeats. And just that basic knowledge, I think would help so many people in just understanding
Mhm.
what's going on because you're right. We beat ourselves up because we live in this everyday society. Got to get all
Mhm.
the shit done by the end of the day. Everything's geared
Mhm.
around testosterone, even the 9 to 5 work schedule without knowing that, of course you'd feel less than. And of course you'd
Mhm.
feel like, what the fuck am I doing? Of course you'd be Googling.
Yeah. No, it's true, and everybody markets to that. I can't tell you the amount of companies that are in my email inbox, like, "We want you to promote this supplement," and it's like the supplement of hormone balance or this, like, new device that's going to solve all your period cramp problems, and that's
Mhm.
what you're missing in your life. You're missing this one supplement that's going to get rid of your period cramps and make your hair grow and make your PCOS symptoms go away. I'm like, "Yeah, that's all in one supplement." It doesn't exist because there's so many components that go into you having a balanced life, a balanced health, balanced hormones, but we're always marketed to as if we're missing one thing. Like we're looking for the next silver bullet, and that's going to fix all of our issues. And that's what I feel like we're trained to look for from a marketing angle, like what we're sold to all of the time. And even sometimes I'll have clients that they're halfway through the program and they're feeling amazing. And then all of a sudden I don't hear from them. And I'm like,
Mm.
where'd you go? And then they go, well, my symptoms are coming back. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing? What's going on? Well, I like just stopped doing everything that was like in my protocol. And I'm like, well, that's why your symptoms are coming back because a lot of these things are lifestyle. Like you can put
Mhm.
these things into remission, but if we go back to the lifestyle that brought them there in the first place, of course they're going to come back. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think we don't want to admit that. That's why even though everybody bashes pharma and they're like, oh, it's like a pill for every ill. Honestly, sometimes I think that's what people are asking for because they don't want to make the changes. They don't
Mhm.
wanna make the dietary changes. They don't wanna stop scrolling on TikTok and go to bed at night. They don't wanna, like, make any changes to their lifestyle, but give me a pill because that's fine. But then they need a pill for their side effects from the first pill, and then they're taking, like, 25 medications.
You're definitely right. Obviously, no one wants to change. They want change, but they don't want to change. And whenever
Yes.
you take a shortcut, you're gonna pay in some way because it's like when you ignore the truth or you go around to
Mhm.
make the facts, it's not going to be real because you didn't address the actual root cause or the truth. So there's always gonna be
Mhm.
something just in life that you're dealing with. And that kind of brings up the birth control conversation, which you
Yeah.
put out. Yeah, you put out an amazing email. Birth control isn't the answer to irregular cycles. Definitely caught my attention being someone that has suffered from horrible anxiety from birth control, suicidal thoughts, like just literally walking around feeling insane. And it didn't, and of course, this was the answer from Western medicine doctors for my endo
Mhm.
pain. And, they'll just dole it out for anything. You have a headache, you have a stomach ache. it's just anything. Here's birth control. It's wild. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Let's talk about this, how it relates to perimenopause, hormone replacement therapy. Let's talk about what birth control really does to your body.
Yeah. So there's so many different types of birth control. So I think there's the combined pill, there's hormonal IUD, there's the copper IUD. But I think one of the biggest things that we need to just take a look at all birth controls is that they don't balance your hormones. Because when we're thinking about balancing our hormones, we're thinking about our body creating what it needs to do. But when you're taking hormonal birth control or even copper IUD, we can talk about when you're taking this, it's suppressing your natural cycle in some way. It depends on which one you're on. For some of them, it's like really dosing the progestin, which is a synthetic form of progesterone, so that the egg can't implant, or some of them, it's completely taking out ovulation. So you aren't getting that rise and fall of your hormones. You're just like literally, when you're on the hormonal birth control that suppresses ovulation, your ovaries actually resemble menopause more than they do a
Mhm.
cycling woman. You're just like neutral. And then you take the sugar pill or you just skip it depending on what you're doing. And so some women are like, I feel great on birth control because it got rid of my symptoms, but then they come off of it and their symptoms are there plus some. And then there's the women who feel absolutely horrendous on birth control and they just keep swapping birth controls. And then they're on more medications for the side effects of birth control. And it's just stacking up and up. And heaven forbid that those side effects are actually from your birth control. There's no coincidence that all of a sudden your depression and anxiety coincides with the time that you started taking your birth control. There's no way. That's all in your head. Let's give you another medication. It's just crazy to me that, like, we aren't listening to women with that, and it's then the one thing that I don't understand. Women with PCOS that have no cycles, they go on the combined pill, so they have a regular withdrawal bleed, but it's still suppressing ovulation. I'm not talking about cycling like progesterone to get a withdrawal bleed, talking
Mhm.
about the full-on birth control. There's no way you're ovulating, but you get a regular withdrawal bleed. And then these women with PCOS go, well, I don't have a period when I'm not on birth control. Therefore, I'm balanced on birth control. And I'm like, well, no, you're not having a period. You're having a
Mhm.
withdrawal bleed because you're still not ovulating. We still haven't solved the issue. But then they think that they can't get pregnant because they don't have a regular cycle. So they go off the doctor. And I kid you not, I have women that are put on birth control. They want to get pregnant, but they're put on birth control to get a quote unquote regular cycle. And then we'll take you off it again and see if it just continues and you will get pregnant. If you aren't regularly ovulating on birth control, which is what brings an actual period, when you come off of birth control, you aren't going to regularly ovulate either. So I
Mhm.
think then it's so disappointing to women, especially the ones that are trying to get pregnant with PCOS. They're like,
Yeah.
well, I only have a period on birth control. So that's when I'm the most balanced. I'm like, well, you aren't having a period on birth control
Mhm.
because you aren't having an ovulation. So I just think that there's no education out there. It's that blows women's mind when they're like, oh, I wasn't ovulating on birth control. I'm like, no. You should have that explained to you, especially in that fertility era. But on top of that, birth control depletes you of many necessary vitamins and minerals, especially when we think about the minerals that are necessary for conception.
Mhm.
And again, women who want to get pregnant, is there anything I should do when I come off of birth control? Should I come off a little bit before I want to get pregnant? And their doctor's just like, oh, no, just come off. You can get pregnant the next cycle. Like, no big deal. I'm like, what about all those necessary vitamins and minerals that are going to impact the baby and you being able to successfully carry a pregnancy and all of these things? It's ignored. And then on top of that, birth control compromises your gut microbiome. And so then you have all these digestive issues. You're bloated after certain foods. You don't feel good after certain foods. And on top of that, we pass our gut microbiome on to our babies. So it's just,
Mhm.
it's mind blowing to me how like birth control is even in the same conversation as fertility when it just compromises so many of those things that we need for a
Mhm.
successful fertility journey. But on top of that, like fertility is a sign of your health. It is.
Mhm.
It like it's your fifth vital sign there. So if we aren't having regular ovulations, we're not having those good quality fertility signs, that means that something is off, which then means you're going to be having those symptoms other places. I think sometimes we go, not trying to get pregnant, so I don't care what my progesterone levels are. I don't care that I don't have cervical mucus. I don't care that my luteal phase isn't long enough. I don't care that my period sucks. But all of those symptoms or all of those like hormones impact your hair, they impact your ability to
Mhm.
lose weight, they impact your
Mhm.
mood, they impact your energy, they impact your sleep, they impact your digestion. And so I think sometimes we get caught up in like hormones are for babies. It's
No.
no, I mean, they are, but they impact every other aspect of your life, which is why we have to pay attention to them, which is why we have to pay attention to those fertility signs. It's so important.
Yeah, that is exactly when I educated myself on the cycle, that is what struck me more than anything, that it is so much because I think you're right. People do get in that, oh, I don't want to have a baby, so it doesn't matter. Oh, it's fine that I'm like damaged because I don't want to have a baby, so that'll guarantee that. I think that's the subtle
Oh,
conversations
yeah.
women have in there until, you have like, you die every month, like in pain, like having endo or really bad period cramps, but also just how birth control cuts off. When you cut off your infradian rhythm, you're cutting off all communication with those hormones with your brain, with
Mhm.
all of the organs. That's for me, I think, when I learned about that, I was like, that's what the fuck happened to me. Like you were saying with mood and with just everything, energy levels, it affects your entire body. So when you cut off all communication with your brain and those other organs in your body aren't getting those hormones that they need because the cycle is essentially synthetic, what do you think that means, like, down the line? Like,
Mhm.
menopause, in perimenopause.
Mhm.
We were chatting earlier how menopause is, like, a day, and perimenopause, and there's all the things leading up to that. I'd like to
Yeah.
chat about that because it's something we're seeing. I feel like people are bringing it up more and more often as far as, like, struggling through that. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts as far as, like, what would you recommend they start and stop in this perimenopause or even approaching perimenopause phase to help balance their hormones naturally?
I have 25,000 things that came into my mind. I was like, which one do I start with? I think the number one thing that I think women need to start with, actually, because I saw somebody post this question in my Facebook group the other day, is that you need to stop doing what you think you need to be doing if it's
Mhm.
completely not working for you and just sit for a second. Like I always,
Mm.
one of the questions I always ask is when my clients are like, my cycles are all over the place, or did I ovulate or I didn't I ovulate, or what's going on with this cycle and why was this period so weird? I'm like, well, what do you think is going on?
Mhm.
Because we always look outside ourselves for the answers as if we never, like our bodies never know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. And you honestly do have probably a little gut check. That's why when somebody says something, you're like, "Yes, that resonates with me." It's because you already knew that and it
Mhm.
aligns with you versus when someone says something and you go, "Yeah, that's totally off base." That's why I think sometimes you need to sit with yourself a little bit, which I think can probably be uncomfortable. But the reason why I say that is I had someone ask in the Facebook group, they're like, I'm just so annoyed with seed cycling because I'm allergic to flax seeds and I'm perimenopause and my cycles are all over the place. They're 20 days, they're 60 days. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, why are you trying to seed cycle? Like, you can't even take one of the most important seeds in the seed cycling batch.
Right.
Just throw it out the window, do something else. There's probably something else that is much more in alignment with you that's not going to cause you so much stress, that's going to better your health in that area. That's why I think you should sit with yourself. But then on the other end of the spectrum, the same day someone was like, I just hate eating raw carrots. They're disgusting. I'm not going to do it. And I was like, that's fine. But you need to find another way to get insoluble fiber because based on what's going on with your life, this is very necessary for you. And so I think there's a difference between the one person who was allergic to one of the seeds, her cycles were all over the place. This is causing so much stress versus the person who's just, I don't like eating a raw carrot. And I'm like, oh, suck it up, buttercup. I know nobody wants to always hear that, but that's why you truly need to sit with yourself for a second and be like, okay, is this something that really just doesn't work with what's going on in my life right now that I can or cannot do? Or is it something that I'm just being a turd about? Let's first sit with that because I bet you any bucks as you're dealing with all these perimenopause symptoms, you probably have 1,000 things that you think you should do.
Yeah.
And that is causing more to your overwhelm. Like, where do I start? This seems so expensive. There seems so many options. So just sit. Like, where do you feel like you need to start? Let's just start there. But then, secondly, in perimenopause, I sometimes think that we try to treat this transitional phase like we're literally heading into a second puberty, just like a backwards puberty. And we try to treat it like we can muscle through it like an athletic performance or something. Like if I just keep pushing through, I'm going to make it to the other side. But when we think about that ideology, let's take a step back and look at what's going on with our hormones, right? So we have this rise and fall of our hormones as we go throughout our cycle. And when we enter menopause, our ovaries are not going to be producing these hormones anymore. It's going to be primarily our adrenals. Now, our adrenals are also the ones producing our adrenaline, our cortisol. And if we keep pushing through, we keep eating our kids' leftovers and not prioritizing nutrition. We keep trying to lose those, pounds that can't seem to go. So we keep doing the HIIT. We keep getting up at 5 a.m. to try and do XYZ and keep pushing through starvation after starvation. I don't know, like what my mom's generation is the almond mom generation. And that generation will literally drink like a fiber drink and be like, that was my breakfast.
Yeah.
We have to really think about nutrition. And then we go, 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 go. And then we go, hey, adrenals, would you like to make some more progesterone for me? Do you think that would be great so I could sleep better and have a better mood? And your adrenals are just like, screw you. You have been doing nothing but hating on me, pushing through, not prioritizing our health. And your body keeps giving, 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 giving until it's dry. And then we ask it to give again and we get mad because we're like, can't believe I have all these symptoms. My body sucks. This is horrible, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, you haven't actually really been taking care of it that well. And then we ask more of it and we get mad when it's not there. And that's when I think about perimenopause is it's all those things start to catch up to you, like all the little things that we just push over when your body's reserve is so big. Like we have this big tank that we can pull from when we're younger, but then we get into that perimenopause stage and that tank isn't as full anymore. But we keep pulling from it as if we expect it to still have that reserve, even though we have not been putting any deposits in. I was going to just say deposits is when you put in, right? We've been just doing withdrawals. It's like the bank analogy's not working right now. But that I think is the biggest issue is that we keep pulling and pulling and pulling and we never put anything in. And then we go, I don't know why my bank account's empty. That's so weird. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you didn't put any money in. And that's, if we want a smoother perimenopause, we have to put in more deposits than withdrawals, which means that we have to rework some of the things that maybe we've been very resistant to because it wasn't a big issue before, right? Like you could handle it. Well, you could handle it. You could handle all the spending because your reserve was so big
Yeah.
and it's not so big anymore. And so that's where I think sometimes people will say, well, so and so eats horribly and drinks all the time and they're just fine. I'm like, okay, well, wait till their reserve pulls out. Like maybe
Mhm.
they just were born with a bigger vitality than you were. And
Mhm.
that's where genetics do come into play a little bit, right? And
Totally.
genetics set you up, but really lifestyle is what determines it. If your genetics are set up really amazingly well, you probably can get away with a lot of things until it comes to eat you in the butt. But if you aren't set up well, you probably have to be on it a lot sooner,
Yeah.
which is that necessarily a bad thing that you have to be on it a lot sooner before all of the things come to get you? So I think that's something to think about too, is it's really important to put those deposits in, and that will give you a smoother perimenopause. And those deposits can look so different depending on what's going on. Number one, this will go on my gravestone. Balance your blood sugar.
Yes.
Will. When? I mean, it impacts every single function in your body.
It
And you
does.
cannot have balanced sex hormones. You can't have balanced mood. You can't have balanced energy. You can't have balanced sleep without balanced blood sugar. And balanced blood sugar doesn't have to be that you never eat desserts or you never do whatever. It's just you are looking for rolling hills across your day. And especially with the holidays, I can promise you there's going to be a couple meals in my future where I'm probably not going to have a perfectly rolling hill, but it's going to be a couple meals, not every day, not every meal, not even every week. And that's what I think we need to look at when it comes to our overall lifestyle is what is the trend? What am I consistently doing over time? Because when we are looking at that balanced blood sugar, if most of your meals are these rolling hills, your body has the capacity to handle other things.
Mhm.
But if every single meal or every day we're having something that's not great, then
Yeah.
your body's capacity goes down. Whether you're diabetic or not a diabetic, we're just looking to get rid of those peaks and valleys, right?
Yes. Yeah,
And
there's chat
so,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, it's really a simple concept. If you just look at your plate, do half your plate non-starchy veggies, quarter protein, quarter fat and carb. It can be literally that simple, aiming for a minimum of 30 grams of protein with every meal and getting that half a plate of fiber in is going to be so impactful. So, did I say you don't have carbs? No, I didn't say that. Did I say you don't have fat? No, I didn't say that. You have all of those things. You just need to make sure it's balanced with everything else. And one of the biggest complaints I always hear is, I can't eat that much protein. I'm too full. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you eating first on your plate?
Mhm.
Because if
Yeah.
you're looking at your plate, prioritize that fiber and protein first and then move on to the other food groups. Because typically, when they say this thing, it will be like, I had a dish of pasta and it was amazing, but then I couldn't
Mm.
finish my salad and my chicken. And I'm like, well, you ate the pasta first.
Yeah.
Why? Just
Yeah.
rearrange that order. Eat your salad and your chicken, then eat your pasta. And you'll find that you can hit those food groups a little bit better. And then you're not as deprived. So I find that just making those simple things, like you're more satiated because you have the fiber and the protein. You're not having those dips in blood sugar because you're not having any like reactive hypoglycemia. So you're staying more stable, so your cravings are better, and then your energy is better, and then you make better food choices as you go throughout your day. You're making food choices based on what you really need versus
Yes,
low hangry blood sugar that just wants sugar to get your blood sugar back up. The
totally.
more you can just really, and because you're having, anytime you have glucose or a carb that turns into glucose, your glucose is going to come up. It's going to happen. So I'm not looking to flatline because we need glucose for conversion of T4 to T3. We need that for energy. We need that for all different functions. I'm not saying get rid of the glucose. I'm just saying I don't want it to go straight up and down. I want it to be a gentle rise and come back down. And by making sure you have your fiber and your protein, you can do that and you will feel so much better. So that's one of the biggest, I think, hands down, the most effective thing that you could do as a
Mhm.
deposit because it's going to impact
Mhm.
everything. It doesn't matter where you are in your cycle. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, you should be balancing your blood sugar. It's going to be so important. So I would start there.
Yeah.
And then I would probably, the next step I would do is start focusing on your quality sleep and saying no to things. Because if we,
Yes.
the more balanced our blood sugar is, the better we're going to sleep. And then the better our sleep is, the better our cravings will be. And the easier it is to maintain blood sugar balance. So they feed into each other. But we need to just focus on the sleep and say no.
Yeah.
Because if you keep saying yes to things that are draining to you and things you don't want to do, and even things that you put on yourself that you say that you think you need to do, really sit with like, do I actually need to do this? Or do I just think that I need to do this? Just knowing yourself. Like, I like people, but I'm not going to be in big crowds of people every day. I find that extremely draining. Or even like
Yeah.
once a week. I'm like, no, thank you. I like people
Yep.
in small doses. So
Absolutely.
knowing yourself and what fills up your cup too is very important. And then honestly, you go test your minerals. Go test your minerals. Make sure like absorption is good. Make sure those key minerals that are impacting adrenal health and your hormones and how your body utilizes hormones are there. Because if we haven't been eating the way we should be, our nutrient depletion is probably down, which is impacting like how different functions in our body are working. So it just all starts stacking up together. So minerals are, uh, they're not free. So I would say it's not necessarily the
No.
first thing I would start with. I would start with blood sugar balance. That's free. Saying no
Yep.
is free. Saying no might even save you money. Focusing on sleep is free. Minerals. And then honestly, I would stop the cardio bunny and I would do weight training.
Wow. I totally agree. It's been coming up a lot, especially with our culture so fixated on you gotta do it to lose weight and like burn
Mhm.
fat. And it's actually, again, it goes back to what we were saying. So much of those statements and that research is based on, not saying it's not true, but it's not based on women in their menstruating years. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's based on women post-menopause and men because they have similar it's they've obviously they have similar circadian rhythms, which everyone
Hmm.
shares in, which we all the sun rises in the morning, you need to be
Hmm.
awake. Sun goes down, you need to go to sleep. We all have
Yeah.
that. But in addition, because we have the ability to carry life, we have the infradian rhythm. So it's so many things you said there. And I love the idea you're talking about of thinking of this as deposits. And
Mhm.
one of my favorite deposits, if you will, mushrooms. You talk
Mhm.
about mushrooms so much. I recently had on Oscar Sierra, amazing mycologist. He does some amazing work treating cancer actually with mushrooms. And I
Mhm.
love all your podcast episodes and all of your thoughts on using mushrooms for hormone balancing. So let's
Yeah.
chat about that because there are a lot of products out there, and I know there's a lot of crap out there. So if someone's wanting to get started to add these into their bank account, into their
Mhm.
internal bank account as a deposit, where would you suggest getting started?
Well, it depends on what symptom probably is like your biggest symptom across the board.
It's like perimenopause, balancing hormones. You could say perimenopause and fertility. Let's start there because it seemed
Okay.
like that is more people are having children later. More of this crap is
Yeah.
stacked up in our bodies
Mhm.
by the time we get to perimenopause. So it's, oh shit. So we're
Mhm.
kind of like treating. So you really want
Mhm.
to add mushrooms now, but
Mhm.
that approach, because I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. I feel like we're seeing it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So I would probably start with reishi, cordyceps, and maitake. The reason being is that reishi works on that HPA axis, so that hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So it's really going to help with how your body responds to stress. Reishi is also one of those things that's really good at helping when you have androgens being methylated. You can have an alpha pathway and a beta pathway, and it helps move them down the beta pathway, which is what we want. Reishi is honestly up there with one of the most studied mushrooms. I think AHCC might top it because AHCC has over like 30 human clinical trials done on it, which is really quite unheard of. But reishi also has quite a few studies up there and is deemed pretty much safe for like anyone. Even Health Canada, which is super strict on everything, doesn't require you to put anything advisatory on reishi for like pregnant
Wow.
and nursing moms, which is really interesting to me.
Wow.
Even though like mushrooms are a food, so it's just weird that we're like
Yeah.
we talk about them as this supplement, which when you get them higher dosed, you can definitely think about it like that, but it is primarily a food. So reishi I would probably start with, and then cordyceps. Cordyceps, I used to think was the guy's mushroom because you hear about it helping with sperm health, you hear about it helping with energy. And so I'm just like, it's the guy's mushroom. I don't need to care about it. But cordyceps actually is really great at helping your body's production of ATP. And it's really great at helping egg quality. So whether you're dealing with infertility or you're in perimenopause, some things that you're probably dealing with are low energy and low libido. And so
Mhm.
cordyceps comes in and is very good for those things across the board. And then maitake is really good for blood sugar, actually. It's very helpful and used to help support blood sugar, but it also helps support ovulation. So again, even if you're in perimenopause, you want to support ovulation until you're done ovulating. You want to ovulate as much as you can until we're done. And if you're dealing with fertility, obviously you want to support that. So those would be the three off the bat that I would start with. When I talk about mushrooms, though, there are some things I think are really important because mushrooms have taken their moment and everybody is adding them to everything. Even one of my favorite coffee creamers has mushrooms in it, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, is that how you get your mushrooms in?" I'm like, "No, I just actually like that coffee creamer." The dose of mushrooms in there is not anywhere near the dose of mushrooms that you would need to see those benefits. That's not why I buy it. I buy it because it just makes my coffee taste good. But there's mushrooms everywhere, mushrooms in chocolate, mushrooms in
Dang.
your skin products, mushrooms in this, and it makes them be able to charge more, right? Because it's a marketing thing. So even if there's a microscopic amount, we're going to charge you a boatload more money because we said it has mushrooms in it. So you have to get past the marketing. So when you are buying mushrooms, there's three or four things I think are so important. Number one, they need to be certified organic. There's just if you are taking something that is at that high of a dosage that you're going to need, certified organic, especially when they're grown, like literally on the ground and
Yeah.
or on wood, make sure that it is certified organics. Hands down, number one thing. Except for AHCC, I recommend you need to get fruiting body only. That's the one that the studies are done on. And also mycelium is grown on grains. So if you're getting anything with like mycelium, unless it's grown a specific way, like it's grown on grains, and when they harvest it, they're not separating it. You're just getting a lot of grains. So,
Mm.
fruiting body only, certified organic. Certificate of analysis needs to be smack dab on their website, or they need to send it to you from the most recent batch, because the things that you're looking for in mushrooms are like the triterpenoids, the beta glucans. And depending on how that mushroom is sourced and depending on the whole like manufacturing process, it can, and how it's grown, it can depend, like, how much of those benefits are in your supplement. And if I'm paying good money, I wanna know how much of those benefits I'm getting, and that needs to be in the testing. Like, I wanna see the purity, but I also wanna see that the triterpenoids, the beta-glucans, and all of those things that I'm looking for in mushrooms are at the dosage that I want in the supplement that I'm paying for. And then lastly, you need to be taking the correct dosage. And this is funny to me because there are so many mushroom supplements out there that go, here, we're giving you a therapeutic dosage. And I look at it and go, that's 500 milligrams. Like, how is that a therapeutic dosage? Because
Mhm.
in the studies, like, for example, lion's mane, to
Okay.
see the benefits of lion's mane, you have to take 4,000 milligrams a day. That is
Well,
a lot. If you're looking at a supplement that is 250 or 500 milligrams, I'm like,
yeah.
okay, let's do the math. If it's 500 milligrams, you have to take one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, eight pills.
I ate, yeah.
8 pills. And that's one supplement. 8 pills. That's insane. That's so many. So I think it's important to look at the dosage because sometimes we'll shy away from some of those companies. We're like, oh, that's so expensive. It's $60 for a 2 month supply. And I'm like, okay, but that's $30 a month. Let's break down the math. And then how many of those do you actually have to take to reach a therapeutic dosage versus a supplement where you'll see as, oh, it's $29 for 2 months. And then you realize, oh, I actually need to take 8 of those pills, which means I'm going to go through this bottle in 1 week. It's actually a lot more expensive. So I think it's really important when you're looking at mushrooms, make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck to do the research on the company, look for all the things, and then you have to give cordyceps. I noticed a difference the first day I took cordyceps at the
Mhm.
correct dosage. I noticed a difference. But with other mushrooms, you do need to give them time to do their work. You start noticing like little things along the way. Oh, I have better focus or I have better sleep. But like to give them like fully saturated in your system and doing what you need to do, you do need to give them about 12 weeks. So I know it's a significant amount of time, which is why you need to do your research and make sure that you're putting your money towards something that you know will do what the research says versus putting your money towards something for 12 weeks and then realizing that you were taking something with grains and only had 250 milligrams of whatever you thought it was.
Yeah, and that goes for so many things. Thank you for saying that. Even just making lifestyle adjustments, you need to give it, I think it's 60 to 90 days really for a cycle because you're
Yeah.
always eating for the next cycle.
Hmm.
Even 90 days from now, 60 days from now. And, like, obviously things vary, but that bag of Doritos or those Cheetos, whatever,
Mhm.
like, you're not, maybe not going to see it now, but in 12 weeks. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't escape that. So
No, it's true. You have that 90-day follicle journey from when the follicle starts to develop the egg to when it fully matures. So everything you're doing now is like impacting that follicle, that egg quality. And so then you'll see that represented in that third ovulation from now and that third period from now. But I also too like in stress wise, like you don't have to be 100% perfect. It's not that
totally.
like everything is every decision needs to be the best decision. It's no, it needs to be the best decision for that moment,
Mhm.
but your goods need to outweigh the bads.
Totally.
And this is where being completely honest with yourself is important. And this is where I like tracking just for a small amount of time. And by tracking, I track in the notes section of my phone. I don't even have an app.
Yeah.
I literally, I'm like, did my workout today. I drank my water today. I took these supplements today. This is what I ate today. That's how I track. And the reason why I do that is it's really easy to get goofed up in our mind of what we think we did because we're so busy. And it's just easy to just forget that, oh, yeah, something happened that day and I actually didn't get my water in. I didn't get my walk in. I didn't do whatever. And write down what you want to do because you forget. Like I forget everything, which I'm pregnant, so I can blame it on that. But
You can. You can.
it's important to track this. Like something I felt like such a real example is so I've been doing Peloton riding because
Right.
whole pregnancy issue that I had was like my pelvis just not staying as stable as I needed to. And so every time I would go outside and walk or I would do like a workout, my hips would be out and I couldn't walk by the end of the day and it hurt so bad. But if I do like just a low impact Peloton bike ride, you're sitting on a seat. So my pelvis
Right.
was fine, everything was happy, and I could get movement in. And I remember I was talking to my friend, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've been getting in, like, a ride, like, 5, 6 days a week, like, it's been doing really well." And then yesterday, I looked on my history, I was like, "Actually, I wanna see how many, like, rides I've actually gotten in." And I was still consistent, I had 4, I've had 4 a week since I've gotten it, but I'm over here, "Oh, yeah, I'm getting in 5 to 6 rides a week." And then I look back at my history, I'm like, "Actually, no, you're not. You just made that up in your head." Yeah, and that's what I think we do. We're like, "Oh, yeah, like, I haven't had any" let's say you're sensitive to dairy or something, "I haven't had dairy any time this week." And then you look back and you go, "Actually, like, I went out to dinner and I had cheese, and then I ate my kids' leftover grilled cheese the next day," you know? So, I
Wow.
think those things just sneak up on you, and you just don't realize it because doing all of the things, honestly, routine, it's
Mm.
just boring.
It
It
is.
is. I think it's easy to just make up stories in our head. So romanticize the routine, find something fun about it. And then if it's not a habit, you do need to track it for a while to make sure you're actually doing it. Because if you need to be taking a certain supplement and you're only taking it 3 days out of the week because you just forget,
Mhm.
it's really not doing anything. So I think that you have to be honest with yourself. Tracking is important. Be honest. Tell yourself you actually only rode the bike 4 times a week, not 5 or 6. Like I thought.
Yeah, it's so important to just be okay not having it together all the time. That's real
Mhm.
healing. Being okay, just not having your shit together and doing what you need for you right now. And that's enough. If you need to take the
Mhm.
painkiller, take it because we're still operating, especially when you're going through a process of detoxing, still
Mhm.
are like where we're at. And it's a journey. It's never like you're at this just pinnacle. Of course, you'll reach certain milestones that are amazing and you won't have pain and you won't have higher energy and all this stuff. But even at those, you're going to discover even more. And then it's just a different bar kind of set. So just to be okay being where you're at,
Mhm.
whatever that looks like, you're right. It's so important. And that's what real healing really is. It's that capacity to hold
Mhm.
everything inside of you, the good, bad, the ugly, all of it, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. And realize that those are like lifestyle changes. So you don't have to change everything at one time because
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to stick to it. It's going to be overwhelming. This is not something you're going to do for 30 days and then go back to
Yep.
whatever the lifestyle is that kind of got us here in the first place. So it's if you start with one thing, then the better it's going to get for you. And I think when we're working on a new habit, it can be challenging if you go, oh, I missed today whatever, like, I'll just start over next week or no, when you're working on a habit, you're probably gonna be like 2 days on, forget a day, then get back on, then 2 days on, and then you forget a day. But
Yep.
then you'll start to notice the trend of, "Oh, I only missed 3 days this week. Oh, I only missed 2 days this week. Oh, I only missed
Yep.
1 day this week." Because you're continually working on it. You can't expect that when you start something new, it's gonna be perfect right away. You just have to start, you have to be okay with messing up because that's going to happen, but we're going to keep working on it. And then you'll get there. It's possible.
It's totally possible, which brings us to my favorite part of the show, the finale, biohacking with art. Question, are you ready, Leah?
I don't know. Yeah.
Dude, let me tell you, you're pregnant, beautiful, like fabulous. You're born ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you had to describe your unique hormonal health approach with any art medium, how would you make it and what would you choose? Could be any medium.
Okay, so I want to do something that you can like erase and like keep like going. So probably something with like charcoal or pencil like that you can change as you go along, because I feel like I'm not someone that goes, I know exactly what I'm doing right now and lay it down in paint and just go with it,
Yeah.
because I think that your journey changes a lot along the way of what you think it's going to look like and what it ends up on looking like. So I don't know, maybe by the end I would be using paint, but we're going to start off with pencil and paper.
Yeah, love that. It sounds super gestural, like the life drawing, like time drawing. It's like one of my favorite techniques where we just have a live model and just the study of the body, and you're using like the negative space. You're not really drawing lines, you're drawing like
Hmm.
shadow, and that creates the form, and you just can
Hmm.
add to it over time.
Yeah,
I love
100%. I also feel like Leah was not very good in art class though, because I am good at copying in art, but I was never good at creating in art, because I'm like, I can't see what you're seeing. I think that's beautiful what I'm looking at, but then when they take whatever you're looking at and put it on paper, I'm like, yeah, I didn't know how those lines all matched up, but that looks beautiful.
I totally get it. But I mean, listen, it comes out in different ways for everyone, especially resourcefulness, which is a huge part of creativity, and the way you communicate these really just, quite frankly, fucked up concepts to people, regarding our hormonal health, what's happened, like different toxins. It's really an art being able to break that down into something really beautiful. That is the truth. That is the truth about our cycles. Every single person came from someone with a period.
Hmm.
It's sacred. It's sacred. Our bodies, women's health, it is sacred. It is how we all exist here. Just thank you for having these beautiful conversations, all of your knowledge and work in that area. It's just been so magnificent chatting with you today. Tell us where people can find you, learn more about your work. Of course, we'll have this in the show notes, but where can they connect with you?
Well, thank you. So my podcast is Balancing Hormones Naturally. I think it's the only podcast with that name. So if you go out and look for it on all platforms, we exist out there. And then on social media, my Instagram is Leah, Leah_Bruegg. And we do put out, I was going to say daily content. I'm like, do we put out daily content? We attempt to put out daily content. There's probably some days where we miss it, but those would be the places where you're going to find the most education from us.
Totally. I would say, regardless if it's daily or not, there's so much juicy content. It's juicy. It's delicious. There really is. Just dive in there.
I'm like, just scroll back. You have lots to read, lots to save, recipes to try, things to do.
Totally. And I hope everyone is able to take away something from this beautifully fertile, delicious conversation we've had here today with Leah to help them go out, face their shit, therefore healing themselves. And remember, as always, the truth will set you free. We will see you all next time. Bye. If you liked this episode or you think this show would be useful for someone else, the best way you can show your support is to share it on your social media outlets with family and friends, or subscribe with the link below to receive exclusive perks. And if you're feeling really generous, please leave a review on podchaser.com, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. and pick up a signed copy of my book about how I healed myself from endometriosis on my Instagram at Meredith W. Ochoa. Thank you so much for listening and for having the bravery to face your shit and heal yourself.